We're all human. And it's important to know that doctors are people too. Doctors have emotions, they have passions in life and hobbies, and they enjoy participating as active members in the communities where they practice medicine. Doctors have families, friends, and relationships, while the latest in healthcare and the most current treatments for ailments will be topics on this Doctors Are People Too radio TV show. The focus will be in learning more about the interesting aspects in a physician's life and what they do away from the doctor's office or operating room table.
Hello, South Florida, and welcome, South Florida and beyond, and globally on the iHeartRadio app. Welcome to Doctors Are People Too. It's hard to believe because it has happened so quickly, but this is my 9th show. Very excited. Last week we had a nice conversation with Dr. Vincent Batone, a radiation oncologist and the medical director of the Cancer Center at North Shore Medical Center in Miami. And today we're back in Boca Raton here with Dr. Jennifer Capizzuti, a family medicine physician with an office just 10 miles south of here in Fort Lauderdale. Listeners, you can always let me know if you'd like to hear your doctor on the air. Just email me at dipino@gmail.com. I'm going to introduce tonight's guest, Dr. Jennifer Capizzuti, in just a minute. But first, I want to let you know a little about myself so you know who's captaining this ship. My name is David DaPino, and I'm a public relations and marketing specialist. I've been writing professionally since 1999. I'm a native South Floridian, written for the Sun Sentinel locally, the daily and community news and Sunday editions covering Delray Beach and right here in Boca Raton as well. The Forum Publishing Group, including the Delray Forum, Boca Forum, and West Boca Forum weekly newspapers, and also the Tribune Company. And recently, with Delray Newspaper and Boca Newspaper monthly newspapers, and about 50 other publications, including the Chicago Tribune, the Baltimore Sun, LA Times, and Hartford Courant. So I've spent a lot of time writing. I love writing, but I also love PR and marketing. In the last few years, I've been in healthcare, so I'm having a lot of fun with that. So enough about me. Let's bring in Dr. Jennifer Capizzuti on Doctors Are People Too. Dr. Capizzuti, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I am good. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming. I really appreciate it. And I just want to let the listeners know, out of all the 9 physicians I've had on the show, you're the most organized and easy to deal with that I've found. So if you're looking for a family practice physician, stay tuned and listen, because she's a lot of fun to be around. And you make me comfortable, and I think that's probably why you do so well with patients as well.
I try to make people feel comfortable.
Awesome.
It's part of my job.
Thank you. So let's get right into it. How'd you get into medicine, and how'd you become a physician?
From early on, I always wanted to be a physician. When I was a child, that's what I'd always tell everyone. And through undergrad, I was a pre-med major. And at the end of that, I decided, you know what? I don't want to go to school anymore. So I ended up joining Merck Pharmaceutical. I became a biologist, worked there for a few years, worked my way up in the ranks. I ended up getting an MBA because I wanted to move into marketing, because I kind of hit the plateau of research. And everyone, in order to move up in marketing, everyone has to do what they call, quote unquote, hold the bag and carry the bag, and that's be a drug rep. So I ended up getting a territory in Florida, loved Florida, wasn't crazy about being a drug rep, and so I finally decided to go back to my first love and went into medicine.
Just want to bring the microphone a little closer. We want to hear your beautiful voice there. Well, that's an interesting story. So you were on the drug rep side first.
Correct.
And then became a doctor.
Correct.
So you actually saw the side of knocking down the doors to get to the doctors, I guess.
Absolutely.
That's neat. I haven't heard that before. So now you're a DO, or doctor of osteopathic
Correct.
medicine, which I think people with an average, knowledge of, medicine, we know it as a doctor that treats the whole body, but I don't think we as patients really understand that. What's the difference between a DO versus an MD?
Okay, so an MD is a medical doctor, and they practice allopathic medicine, where a DO is a doctor of osteopathic medicine, and we practice osteopathic medicine. So it's a holistic approach. Osteopathic physicians consider the patient's environment, their nutrition, their body systems as a whole when we diagnose and treat patients. We also take into account patients' feelings and their goals.
Okay, nice.
We have 200 additional hours of training in OMT, or osteopathic manipulative treatment, where we manipulate the musculoskeletal tissue. An MD in that situation may use a painkiller or something like that, where we try to use osteopathic manipulation. The rest of our training's the same.
And wow, 200 hours of additional training. So if I'm thinking about going to a doctor and I see that, I mean, that should stick out. I mean, that is a lot more training. So that's really great. And you treat the whole body as well?
The whole body. We look at everything. Where if you go to a specialist, they're going to focus on your lungs or your heart or whatever, and I have to focus on all of that.
Wow, the whole body. Now, you also have a master's in public health. When I first was writing notes about you, the MPH. Can you explain to listeners what a MPH is? Because I think we've seen that from time to time, and what it takes to become an MPH and why it's important.
Okay, so an MPH takes 2 years. It focuses on public health, the practice of it, as opposed to researching or teaching. It involves biostatistics, epidemiology, environmental health, health policy, administration, and then social and behavioral sciences. I feel personally the more that you educate yourself, the better that you can be as a physician to help patients. Okay.
And also, another your areas of interest is in preventative medicine.
Correct.
So, preventative medicine, it kind of sounds like almost preventing medicine, but actually, it's completely a 360 from
Right.
that. It's some of the things that you would help a patient out, I guess, with to increase their overall health or get them in optimum health.
Correct. Preventative medicine focuses on the health of the individual and the community and different defined populations. Its goal is to protect and to promote and to maintain health and well-being, and we want to prevent disease. That's where the prevention comes in, and we want to prevent disability and death. An example is I often get asked, did you test me for everything, especially every cancer? And my best answer is that I've done on a physical, I've done everything that preventative medicine entails. So we've done your blood work, we've done an EKG, we do different things at different ages, but there's no one test for some specific cancers. And that's unfortunately why people pass away from things like pancreatic or ovarian cancer, because there aren't tests for those things.
Oh, wow. And then you mentioned an interesting thing, age. What age population do you treat? And also from the standpoint, what age population does a family medicine physician treat or family practice physician treat?
Well, we're trained down to pediatrics. However, I chose to practice age 13 and up. That's because I believe a pediatrician is a specialist in children. So, and there's so many more vaccines and vaccine series. So I focus on once they become a teenager. My average age in my practice is probably between 40 and 60. And then those 40-year-olds, I take care of some of their children. And then occasionally I'll take care of some 60-year-old's parent. But I have very few patients that are over the age of 80, I would say.
Okay, traditionally I would think, pediatrician, I think the way we think in the general population is pediatricians all the way up to 18, but you can treat patients from 13 all the way up.
At about 13, they stop wanting to sit on a fire truck and they're ready to go into an adult office. Yeah.
I was ready, actually. I went early. I remember that. So we talked a little bit about preventive medicine and then your age population. Where I told the listeners before that your office is just 10 miles away, but where are you located?
So I'm on Federal Highway, just south of Commercial Boulevard on the east side. So it's 4750 North Federal Highway. I'm on the second floor, Suite 202, and the zip it's Fort Lauderdale 33308.
Okay, and then you're also, we mentioned before, on staff at a local hospital in the area?
Florida Medical Center, correct.
Okay, so that's in Fort Lauderdale for the listeners. And also for the listeners, if you'd like to call in, the number is 1-888-565-1470. Now, also, I like to ask physicians this question. I always throw this in. What is the most rewarding thing, in your opinion, about providing health care to people?
When you see results, when you can save someone's life, or when you just make them happier. I had a man the other day who told me that I took him out of a box and put him on a spaceship. He's back in the world and he's so happy. So you do what you can. I think as long as you're empathetic with the patients, it goes a long way. And as long as you're a good listener, even if there's not too much you can do medically, at least you can be someone for them to talk to.
And doctors are so important. Actually, my family or internal medicine physician, talked to him a few times, and he said, David, you're getting up there in weight. You have good numbers and everything, but you're getting to the age where the point of no return. And I didn't listen to him the first time, and he sat me down right and told me again. And then the second time, I was able to lose 41 pounds. Actually, I put a little bit of it back on, but it's important to have a physician that you can talk to and that. As a DO, studies the whole body and will help you with your health, weight loss, and other things. Now, I also ask doctors, how important is change in life? So change in health, changing, I guess, the cells on a molecular level, being more healthy, change in weight, quitting smoking, limiting alcohol intake, and making changes in life. And you had an interesting idea about smoking that I asked you about.
Yeah, I don't lecture anyone on smoking. Nobody wants to hear a lecture, especially when you're an adult. I think everyone in the world knows that smoking is bad for you. So what I tell people is it's 99% in your brain. When you're ready to quit, you let me know, and we have a few things that can help you. But quit when everything's the best it isn't going to be in your life. Set yourself up to succeed, and it's extremely important to quit. I've had quite a few patients quit, and then they're so proud of themselves. But I also tell them this, never have another one. You like to smoke, that's why you smoked.
I'm going to send my mom your way. Definitely.
Sounds good.
She's in the age range, so we're good to go. We have about 2 more minutes before we take our commercial here. And then we'll get to talk a little bit about some of the things Dr. Capizzuti does when she's not practicing medicine, which is fascinating with mission trips to Africa. So we got a couple more minutes, so stay tuned for that. But I just want to get 1 or 2 more questions in before the break. Another area of interest you have is in wellness and health promotion. I think as a patient, when we see that as an area of interest listed, of course, all of us want to be well, but what is wellness and health promotion?
Well, wellness is making sure that you're doing everything you can to stay healthy. So the best way I can say is get a physical once a year. A physical entail having routine blood work done, an EKG if you're 40 or over, or you have some indication for it. Then we go through the rest of preventative medicine, which would be mammograms for women, female exams, colonoscopies starting at age 50, unless you have a family history. Interestingly enough, we're going to be bringing into the office genetic testing in the blood, which will test for colon cancer. So if it's negative, you don't need your colonoscopy. If it's positive, you'll still have one to remove polyps, etc. But I think that's going to be a big hit because a lot of people, even if they're not afraid of the colonoscopy, they don't have the time for it. And so they keep putting it off. And colon cancer is almost entirely preventable if you have colonoscopy or the testing done. And then we also talk about bone densities. We talk about vaccines. And then we go through patients' body mass index, what their ideal weight would be. We go through their family history to see if there's anything we should screen them for earlier. That's pretty much it.
That genetic testing information is huge.
Yeah.
That's really neat. Thanks for sharing that with us because, the test is important, but if you don't need to have it, like you said,
right,
every year, I mean, maybe that's something that could save people time and, the energy of going through that whole process.
Correct.
When is colonoscopy normal for, I guess, the average adult? What age?
Average adult is 50, and then you go back every 1, 3, 5, 10 years, depending on what they find polyp-wise. If you have a first-degree family member, meaning mom, dad, brothers, sisters, with colon cancer, you start 10 years before they were diagnosed. So if mom had colon cancer at 50, you start at 40.
So for listeners that would like to know more about that genetic testing in the future and probably a good time to see Dr. Capizzuti is the next few months, because you don't want to get her to get booked up before, she gets this. Is going to become very popular again. She let us know that she's at 4750 North Federal Highway, Suite 202. That's in Fort Lauderdale. Zip code's 33308, so you can put it into your phone or however you track or look for areas these days, or physician offices. And her number's 954-771-5841. I guess we're going to rip right through here. I want to ask you another question. I had a bariatric surgeon on here, and we talked a lot about body mass index. I know that's something that the bariatric surgeon uses. Is that used in a family practice setting at all nowadays?
Absolutely. We do a body mass on everyone. Every visit, a patient at the minimum gets height, weight, and blood pressure as their vitals, and then I or the computer will determine what their body mass is. There are a few examples where you have someone who's very muscular, and so their BMI will be high, but there's different tests you can do to prove that it's muscle mass. Those are mostly people going into the military and things that need to have a certain BMI. If your BMI is under 18.5, you're considered underweight, and then between 18.5 and 24.9, you're healthy. And then overweight is 25 to 29.9, and then anything over 30 is obese. So, for example, I'm 5'6", and my maximum weight is 150 pounds.
Okay.
That's to have a normal BMI under 25.
Well, and if someone is interested in, weight loss or the options, is it a good idea for them to go to their family practice physician first and get the BMI checked and talk with their family practice physician before, making any drastic changes or ideas?
Honestly, you don't receive that much training in med school on teaching people about weight loss. However, I spend a great deal of time counseling people. I would say my top 2 complaints in my office are fatigue and I can't lose weight. So I end up counseling anyway. If they're looking for a diet, I steer everyone towards Weight Watchers, because that is proven to be the most effective long term, at least, because our biggest problem here is portion size in the U.S., and so that's the thing it teaches you. While the quick diets work, people traditionally gain the weight back, and anything like the Atkins diet, those kinds of things, are just a manipulation of calories. I want everyone to exercise. Exercise is great for your heart, but it's really hard to burn off 100 calories as opposed to putting it in your mouth.
Definitely.
So if you calorie count, you can lose a lot of weight.
Definitely. And also, what do you think of the Mediterranean diet? Is that something, or paleo diets, the things that we're hearing about in the news, is that something that patients can come talk to you about before they kind of make that?
They can, but they're better off talking to a nutritionist.
Mm-hmm. Okay, they're better off there.
Yeah.
Let's, before we get into the part about what you do outside of providing care, why is it important? You mentioned before vaccinations, and this has really been in the news lately, for and against. So why is it important to get the proper vaccinations in a timely manner during the person's lifespan, I guess?
I guess the easiest way for me to describe it is to refer to the case of measles we just had about a week ago in Miami-Dade. Measles shouldn't be around anymore. And so by people not vaccinating their children, we're spreading these diseases that should be eradicated. You have to realize that, especially in South Florida, we have a lot of foreigners coming over who didn't have the opportunity to have vaccines. And so no matter what your socioeconomic class is, you're sitting next to someone, they cough on you, and you're at risk of getting one of these diseases if you're not vaccinated. The last thing you want to do is be responsible for an outbreak, in the area. So any vaccine or any medication can have any side effect. Is autism caused by vaccines? The studies all show no. I know people still have their personal beliefs, but as of now, there's no definitive proof. So it's important to stay healthy and to not spread disease to someone else. And another thing I just want to mention quickly, for example, when in med school, you have to have titers to see if you really are immune to all of these diseases. And I had all my vaccines growing up, and I wasn't immune to rubella. So lots of times your immunity wanes, or you just never developed it. I had the hepatitis B series twice because I didn't develop an immune response. So just because you had the vaccine does not ensure that you are protected. So if you are in a healthcare environment or around someone with these diseases, you do want to make sure that you do have immunity.
And does that go for flu shots as well? I mean, every year they ask us to get them. So, and also the second part of the question, are they available at your office?
They are. They're not here yet. Typically, I get them fairly early, which would be the end of August.
Wow.
And I start vaccinating right away. The reason is it takes about 2 weeks until you develop a full immunity. So if you, and let me just say this once, maybe people will listen. The flu shot is killed. You cannot get the flu from the flu shot. If you get sick after, it's not the flu, it's a cold, it's bacterial, or you haven't developed full immunity yet, okay? The children's vaccines, the nasal spray, they are live. They can get sick.
And we always hear those myths, and they're almost like they almost become facts.
Every day.
In a way.
Every single day.
Oh, you hear from
Right.
the population.
But the reason, it's pretty much a guess. When I was doing research, I was doing an influenza vaccine. And so I actually got to sit in on the CDC panel where they were deciding what strains of influenza to put in the vaccine for the following year. And it's just a bunch of experts sitting around with their best guess what they think it's going to be. So that's why they don't always work, or why it's not a good match.
You mentioned measles before. I heard on the radio, I think it was this morning, about mumps. Is that
I didn't hear that.
Oh, okay. That's another one I haven't heard
Right.
from in a while.
It's measles, mumps, rubella is the vaccine.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. Okay. Now, also, should a person come in, or a man or woman come in each year for a physical, or is that something that maybe certain underlying factors would be a reason for a physical?
A physical should be once a year, or if you're having problems, then we can turn it into a visit that's a physical. But, I focus on preventative medicine. So if you can feel good and still have something wrong with you. An example is high blood pressure. It's called the silent killer. People say, I don't feel any different. I'm like, you're not going to until it reaches such a high level that you're at risk for an aneurysm. So you still need to be checked.
Okay, we have about 5 more minutes, and I know Dr. Capizzuti has been very gracious informing us about her areas of interest. Again, she's at 4750 North Federal Highway, Suite 202, and that's in Fort Lauderdale, and her number is 954-771-5841, or you can go to www.tfpsdocs, that's tfpsdocs.com, to learn a little bit more about Dr. Capizzuti. Now, what do you do when you're not providing care for the population as a family practice physician? What are your hobbies and passions in life?
I would say my biggest passion is animals. Got a couple at home, and I'll foster when I can, and I try to travel places where I can see different animals and see different scenery. I love to travel. So I often combine that with doing medical missions, which I also love. I feel like that's my opportunity to give back to the people who are really less fortunate. So ever since I've been in med school, my freshman year of school, I started going on medical missions. I started going to Guatemala. So at points, I'd take the residents there for a month at a time. And we did so much in our little town that they no longer needed us, which is amazing.
That's great to hear.
I love Guatemala. So now pretty much we're focusing on, I go with a group called Do Care International. And lately it's been to Kenya, taking care of the Maasai tribesmen, which is quite interesting. There's a very, very large population of HIV positive individuals. They're a polygamous society. Most of them live, the ones that we take care of live in Amboseli National Park. So it's kind of a safari every morning going in to get to what they call a boma, where they live in mud huts. There's no electricity. There's no running water. But HIV treatment is free, but the patient would have to walk 2 or 3 hours to get the treatment, and so they don't do it. So there's a lot of super infections, a lot of STDs because of the polygamy. So we can make a really big difference in what time that person has left, because we can cure STDs and we can cure big abscesses and stuff like that. So that's pretty fulfilling. You know, their lifespan is shorter because of the HIV with no treatment, but the time that they do have, we give them more quality.
And that's in Kenya and then also Nairobi?
My favorite place in the world is not in Nairobi. It has a bad rap. I don't know why. You need to be safe. But there's a place called Giraffe Manor, which I smile just thinking about it. It's my favorite. So it's a giraffe sanctuary, and then there's a large area of grass between where they stay at night, and they come up to the manor, and they'll stick their head in your window in the morning, and you feed them, and they'll come in the kitchen, stick their head in. They're very friendly. Tons of pictures of me kissing them. I have had my whole rabies vaccine set preventatively because I pet every animal. And then next to that is a baby elephant sanctuary, Sheldrick Wildlife Trust, which sadly most of the babies' moms were killed for their ivory. So stop the ivory trade. But you're allowed in, the public's allowed in for 1 hour a day to watch them. And if you adopt one, you're allowed in at dinner time for an hour. They're all going to be released in the wild eventually, so they don't want any interaction with humans other than their keepers. And they're super neat. They like to have company, so a keeper sleeps with them every night in their little stall. But the keeper has to move every night, not the elephant. The keeper moves so that the elephant doesn't get attached to him. And the other interesting thing is they speak English to the elephants because there's so many different African dialects. They don't want the elephants to get confused, so it makes it easy for you too.
That's so neat. That's the best story I've heard yet of what physicians do outside of providing treatment. If you want to visit Dr. Capizzuti and hear some more stories and get a great family practice workup, medicine workup, 4750 North Federal Highway, Suite 202 in Fort Lauderdale. And once again, her number is 954-771-5841. Dr. Capizzuti, thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it. It was very nice being here.
Thank you for listening and watching Doctors Are People Too with David DaPino. Join us next week for more in-depth views on what doctors are all about and how they spend their free time. All shows can be seen on amp2.tv. And if you have questions you want answered on the air, call 866-224-5422 and leave a message that can be read on the air. The opinions expressed on the preceding sponsored program were strictly those of its hosts, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors.